the call to the member for Flynn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to make a contribution to the Appropriations Bill 2022-2023. When the Treasurer presented his speech at the end of October, he did very little to address the serious issues in my electorate of Flynn. One of the main things I hear when travelling around the electorate is how much families are suffering from the cost of living crisis. Unfortunately, this budget does nothing to address it. The average family is set to be worse off by at least $2,000 by Christmas. Groceries are 8% higher, not just because of natural disasters, but also by Labor-made disaster scrapping, for an example, ag visas. Supply has been slashed because farmers and processors are only working at around 60% of workforce capacity, which has put upward pressure at the checkout for families. Retail electricity prices are predicted to increase by 50%, while the $275 promised by the Labor government to reduce electricity bills has now been scrapped. It's gone. Interest rates have already gone up and are predicted to go up further, which is ripping hundreds of dollars out of household budgets each month. Labor's own budget forecasts skyrocketing gas prices, 40% in the next 2 years, and yet they have provided no serious policy or investment to alleviate this price surge. The surest way to secure affordable, reliable gas is through increasing supply. Funding for gas exploration has been cut. Labor has gutted $31 million out of the exploration in the Cooper-Adavale Basin Plan and $23 million from the Beetaloo by discounting the Beetaloo Cooperative Drilling Program. At the same time, in a blatant attempt to buy green votes, Labor has showered the Environmental Defender's Office with an extra $9.6 million, opening the door for more vexatious court actions and lawfare to delay and stop new resource projects. Madam Speaker, the only new change to the tax system announced in this budget is a new tax on investments. Labor's sneaky new tax will slug people who invest in their own savings and superannuation. Despite ruling out these changes before the election, Labor will hit retirees and investors with a new $555 million tax depriving investors of franking credits, which they have previously relied on. Madam Speaker, Labor's budget has turned its back on families desperate to find childcare places in regional and rural areas. $4.7 billion has been announced in childcare measures, but it doesn't help regional and rural families because it doesn't deliver any additional childcare places. In my electorate of Flynn, many families cannot find a childcare place for their child. This is preventing parents from returning to work sooner. Our communities need availability and they need accessibility, not just affordability. There's been confirmation of cuts, programs scrapped, energy security and regional development plans, regional accelerator program, community development grants program and Building Better Regions Fund, the BBRF. 815 projects have been scrapped around Australia that were part of the BBRF. In October, I visited the construction site of the Ivy Anderson Aged Care project in Springshaw, which received $4.1 million from the Building Better Regions Fund. This site is ready for a foundation laying and construction. Weather dependent, the project will be completed in the first quarter of 2023. These 9 one-bedroom residential units have a long-time vision for the hard-working Ivy Anderson Committee. The Labor needs to tell our hard-working regional and rural communities why it's putting their city mates before regional and rural Australia and why it's turning its back on future projects just like the Ivy Anderson Aged Care project. We need rural and regional infrastructure to get produce from the paddock to port, to pay the bills for this nation and improve our communities. Madam Speaker, I have previously used my time as the federal member for Flynn to speak out about serious logistical issues that are preventing the use of the Port of Gladstone. The former member for Flynn, Mr Ken O'Dowd, secured $100 million for the access to the Port of Gladstone project back on the 3rd of April 2019 to provide an alternative route for heavy transport vehicles accessing the Port of Gladstone. This $100 million is once again in this year's budget. However, the Port of Gladstone project has not progressed, with it being in planning stages since 2020. There are 4 bridges in the Gladstone area that have oversized, weight and load restrictions put upon them. These bridges need to be repaired or replaced and present huge logistical problems for the Queensland Labor Government's proposed multi-billion-dollar alternative renewable energy projects in central Queensland. A few weeks ago, we saw a 250-tonne energy generator on its way to the Callide Power Station stranded at the Port of Gladstone due to the bridges in the region having these oversize and weight restrictions upon them. This generator has now to be loaded onto a barge and taken further up the port to Fisherman's Landing. This is an absolute waste of time and resources, and even more disappointing, it could have been prevented. Madam Speaker, Labor is taking the fun out of regional Queensland and Australia as well. The budget will not proceed with round 2 of the Agricultural Show Development Grant Program. This is a great disappointment considering 30 regional shows are in the Flynn electorate. These shows are the very fabric of many of our regional communities. The October budget is scrapping $14 million over 2 years from 2022-23 for the partial reversal of the 2022-23 March budget measures titled Regional Accelerator Program Establishment. The budget also mentions $2.8 million in savings for the partial reversal of agricultural shows and field days. The budget says the funding will be redirected to fund other government priorities. The government does not prioritise regional and rural shows. It is stripping money out of regional Australia wherever it can. Labor's budget has committed to increasing heavy vehicle road user charge rate from 26.4 cents a litre to 27.2 cents a litre. This means truck drivers will be slugged an extra 0.8% in tax for every litre of diesel fuel that they buy. Labor's agenda to treat regional Australia like a cash cow is a disgrace. However, the budget does include $80.7 million to support voluntary action by farmers to lower methane emissions. This includes $50 million for a National Soil Carbon Innovation Challenge to lower emissions through better soil management, $5.7 million National Soil Carbon Data Program to support partnerships to improve data at low-cost alternatives for measuring soil carbon, and $20 million in a methane emulsions reduction in livestock program for the research into abatement and the productivity benefits of livestock feed technologies and the development of technologies to deliver low emissions feed supplements to grazing animals. This plan does not stack up. This plan will force farmers to buy more expensive feed for their cattle, making farming more expensive. The result will be an increase in meat prices. Everyone's food bill will only grow under Labor. This is the start of another attack on farmers. The Coalition didn't sign up to a methane pledge, which called for a 30% global reduction in methane emissions on 2020 levels by 2030. Signing the pledge goes against the agricultural sector to grow to $100 billion by 2030. At a time when families are struggling with the cost of energy and mortgage repayments, this tax on the grazing industry will only push up food prices further. What activists want is an end to the beef industry and the grazing industry as a whole. Madam Speaker, the budget also scraps $4.6 billion out of water projects by not proceeding with Hells Gate Dam project in Queensland, deferring funding of $899.5 million over 4 years from Dungowan Dam and Pipeline, Emu Swamp Dam and Pipeline, Hughenden Irrigation Scheme and the Wailanga Dam wall raising projects. The budget also did not match the Coalition's commitment of $25 million towards the water supply for the critical development of new industrial precinct 20 kilometres from Emerald at the Yamla Enterprise area. The funding was to support the proposed Yamla Enterprise area, an intermodal and industrial precinct to turbocharge central Queensland economy, creating more jobs and industries. Cuts to water programs are devastating and will impact on regional areas. The development of water assets is crucial to the future of agriculture and industry in Australia. But this budget does not address this. Madam Speaker, the Rockhampton Ring Road is a key piece of infrastructure. It is a project that will support the region's economy by improving freight efficiency, flood resilience and the capacity of the Bruce Highway, as well as improving road safety. Labor's budget confirmed that they will delay the $1.1 billion Rockhampton Ring Road project, where tendering was almost complete and the work was due to begin in January 2023. Central Queensland is the economic engine room of Australia, and it needs to be supported with essential infrastructure to support the growth and development of this region. In the region, there's over $1 billion Shoalwater Bay training area and the Clark Creek Wind Farm, solar and battery farm at Rookwood Weir. With major projects like this, it is not acceptable for military tanks with over 100 wind turbines and oversized equipment to be travelling through the Rockhampton CBD. For the Clark Creek Wind Farm, each tower is 11 truckloads. This includes 3 blades, 7 tower components and 1 Goldwyn generator that weighs 108 tonnes. The biggest component is the synchronised condenser unit, which is a 220-tonne piece of equipment. There are 16 traffic lights through the central Rockhampton CBD, which must have risers put under them, as load clearances have to be 6.2 metres. 100 wind turbines at 11 loads, that's 1,100 truck movements of oversized, overweight and over-length equipment. 3 police will be assigned to each movement, and it appears that the federal Labor government are happy to strip critical funding from regional projects and pump the money into metropolitan areas, and this is simply unacceptable. Enough delays. The federal government needs to cough up the funding for the Rockhampton Ring Road and get on with building it as soon as possible. Madam Speaker, after the Coalition delivered an $811.8 million Connecting Regional Australia initiative in March 2022, Labor's so-called Better Connectivity Plan for Regional and Rural Australia both accesses and redirects funding from a number of important Coalition programs. This Labor budget cut to regional communications at least $101 million over 4 years. The budget papers show that a $106 million program to boost the resilience of telecommunications infrastructure for natural disasters in vulnerable locations has been axed, with a much smaller allocation of $30.4 million made to the Department of Home Affairs for resilience initiatives, including for telecommunications infrastructure. $30 million for various internet affordability measures for regional and rural communities has been cut to just $4.7 million. $5 million for emerging technology trials has been axed. $418 million from open access or multi-carrier mobile expansion has been cut to $400 million. Mobile Black Spots program has been cut by $37.5 million, and the lowest level of investment in the MBSP since 2015. Whilst adopting the Coalition's plan to extend the peri-urban mobile program to regional cities as the opposition called for, Labor is providing only half of the $78.5 million committed by the Coalition. Madam Speaker, it has been reported that the Boyne-Tenham Sharks in my electorate of Flynn will receive only half of what Labor promised the club at the last election cycle, even though Labor did ordinarily match the Coalition's fully budgeted amount of $2.5 million to build the new clubhouse and facilities. They have decided not to honour this funding and reduced it to $1.3 million. Once again, Labor says one thing before the election and another thing after. In conclusion, it's clear the Labor budget is one to appease metropolitan Australia and is not one for regional and rural Australia, and particularly my electorate of Flynn.